Good after morning, everybody. Well, you'll never guess where I am. I'm at the dealership with the Chevy. And yeah, hey, the kid started it with the key. Now I just gotta get home and fix the rest of it. But I'm so happy. He programmed that immobilizer and he's working on programming the clutch pedal now. Bam! I love it. Well, still not fixed, but at least it starts with a key now. GM dealer. Hey, at least it starts with a key. What's in your garage today? Well, today, today is, what day is today? Today is Friday. And Thursday, I tell you, man, my memory is just not there. And I'm probably talking too loud. So Wednesday afternoon, I got finished with the 2011 Chevy Camaro. Now, mind you, let me tell you, I know in previous videos I've told you about the wiring. Here's the complete story without all the gobbledygook. When my uncle called me, and you've probably heard this before, but I got to tell you this. When my uncle called me, he told me that he pulled it in the driveway or in this garage. He has a small garage next to us, into his house. He said, it won't start. It just cranked and cranked and cranked and won't start. And then now it just clicks. So the first thing I thought of was that his battery connections had went bad on him. Well, we jumped in the car, the wife and I jumped in the car. We drove the 4 hours up there, cleaned his battery terminals. That wasn't the problem. Come to find out that his ECM fuse was blowed. So there wasn't nothing I could do. I didn't bring any tools with me. There wasn't nothing I could do that day. So we came home and we scheduled for me to come back that next Monday. I think it was, a few days after that. I think I had to wait a week for a part for the trailer so the winch would work. So myself and Donald drove up there in David's truck with my trailer. We got the Camaro, brought it back here, and so I started investigating what caused it's not so much what caused the ECM fuse to blow, but why was it blowing? I went through like 7 or 8 fuses testing different. I unplugged the throttle body, I unplugged the IC, I unplugged the MAF, I unplugged. None of it made the ECM fuse not blow. Unplugged the O2 sensors, it still blowed. Then I found out through, I went and got a service manual, found one online, found one for free for a 2010 Camaro, but I questioned its validity for an 11. So then I downloaded one off of eBay for a 2011. Slight little bit of a difference, but it was the same exact pages and everything. The 2010 one had color wire schematics and the 2011 one had black and white. But I tell you, I would not have been able to do that without that service manual, because I was able to look into the service manual. Now, this took days. I am not a ASC certified nothing or any certified trained nothing service tech whatsoever. I'm a parts changer out of necessity for years. I put my first water pump on when I was 8 years old, and I'm 63 now. 61 now. I'm trying to give myself some age. Anyway, so I've been turning wrenches a lot of time, but I've been replacing parts. I've gotten pretty good at figuring out what's wrong with the car and just replace that part. I've never got into the internals of the engines, the cam ratios or the lift and the duration on the valves or any of that stuff, or the compression ratios or the stroke ratios. I've never gotten into any of that. I've never been a motorhead, but I'm pretty good at keeping my cars running. So So I'm learning by reading this service manual. And so I found out that the wire that goes from the ECM fuse on there's two sides. There's the power side and the action side. The action side of the wire went down to a joint, split into 3 different wires, and then went directly into the ECM. And it was designed to be a power wire. The powertrain module gave the ECM fuse power, and then it would send that power to the ECM. Well, as soon as it got there, it shorted out. It was a dead short, and it would pop that fuse because somewhere inside that ECM grounded. Went through some mechanics online to figure out how to test it with an ohm meter. The guys online determined, yes, your ECM is fried. I then sent that to another friend of mine. He said, yeah, I concur, it is fried. I then sent that to a YouTuber that I watch, Kenny Wessel, and he also has Backyard Mechanics on Facebook. And he said, yes, that is fried. So that told me, okay, we need an ECM. Well, GM, the dealership, wants $1,200 for an ECM. I found one out of a place in Florida called All Computer Resources for $290, I think it was, shipped to me, 3 days shipping. Took about a week, but I got that, got it installed. Then I found out that when you change an ECM, you now have to program your throttle body, sometimes your crank sensor, your air conditioning system, your clutch pedal, because his is a manual, it's a 6-speed manual. The clutch pedal has to be relearned, the keys have to be relearned, the immobilizer has to be relearned. I'm like, oh crap. So I went to AutoZone and bought the Innova 7111 diagnostic scanner. Excuse me, I got to sneeze. And it said that it would do all of those things. And then when I get it here and I start using now it did program the throttle body, because when I first started the car, now mind you, this car was a no crank, no start. You turn that key, the immobilizer light was solid. It was lit up solid. It would not go off. So I started researching the service manual, and it said when you do an ECM, you got to do all these steps. And I had to test the starting circuitry, the starter relay, the starter fuse, the powertrain module. I had to test all those to make sure they were functioning. And as I go along, one of the tests, I wonder if I still have it here. It's probably in the house. Anyway, you've seen it in my last video when I made the 30 amp fused jumper wire. What you do is you jump one pin of the starter relay to the other, and it starts the car. It engages the starter. That tests the starter relay system, and it tests the starter. I took the starter off. In the first days of having the car, we pulled all the O2 sensors loose. It still blowed the fuse. I took the starter off. It still blowed the fuse. Took the starter down to Napa, had it tested. It tested fine. Put it back on. There was a lot of wiring that the loom was so heat checked and rotten that when you touch it, it just breaks off, falls in your hand. So, so I knew the starter system worked. It functioned, but the car still wouldn't start with a key. So I took the car down. I loaded it on a trailer, took it down to a locksmith, had him program the key. When I took it to him, the immobilizer light was solid. It was on all the time. It would not go off. Some of the programming methods, they say put the key in, turn it onto the on position, wait 10 minutes for the immobilizer light to go out, and then turn it off for 5 seconds. The immobilizer light never went off. So I took it down, had the key programmed. Now the immobilizer light goes on. When you put the key on, the immobilizer light comes on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it goes out. But it still wouldn't start. So I tried that 10 minutes, 5 seconds, 10 minutes, 5 seconds, 10 minutes, 5 seconds. Come back a couple days later, 10 minutes, 5 seconds, 10 minutes, 5 seconds. Wouldn't work. So I jumped the car with the starter relay. I jumped it, and it was running, and it started throwing misfires and things. So I got my Innova 7111, and I programmed the throttle body, and those misfires went away, cleared those codes. And then basically I was stuck. For like 4 or 5 days, I was stuck. I couldn't get that immobilizer because the immobilizer light, when you turned it to the on position, the immobilizer light would come on, stay on for 5 seconds, and go off. Just like any normal light, just like the brake light does, just like the oil lamp does, just like all those ready lamps goes. And so I started asking questions, different mechanics. I couldn't find anything in the service manual that told me anything about how the program, because the codes I was getting was security key not programmed, security key. There was 2 codes. It was security key not programmed, and something about the programming for the security key did not get accomplished or something like that. I can't remember it off the top of my head. But so I broke down and took the car to the dealership, paid them $230 to program the clutch, because even though that my Innova 7111 said it would program the clutch, not for GM. Said it would do the AC relearn, not for GM. Said it would do the immobilizer reset, not for GM, or at least not for the 2011 Chevy Camaro with the 3.6 liter in it. So took it to GM. They programmed the immobilizer. They did the clutch. Now it starts with the key, but the immobilizer light flashes. And so he tried programming it again. The immobilizer light flashes. And he told me, he's like, it needs further diagnostics. So I come back home and I'm like, I don't know what to do with it. And Uncle says, hey, I'm going to drive down there and check it out. So when he got here, we came out and we took it for a test drive. We drove. Now, mind you, at this time, he spent $1,800 on this car. He has sent me a total of $1,800 to work on this car. Some of it was used kind of like labor for me, some of it not. Most of it was spent on the car itself. We took it for a test drive. We went down to town, or down to the interstate, and we went down the interstate all the way to Pottsville, come back to Russellville, stopped at a dealership. He looked at a car, and then we came home. And he's like, I'm tired. I need some sleep. So he went in. That poor man went to sleep at 6 p.m. on the couch. He got up the next morning at 9. He was tired. That man was tired. He got up at 4 o'clock the morning before, drove here the 4 hours, and he was just tired. That took a lot out of him. Anyway, so the next day we get up, we take it for another test drive, and he's like, you know what? Let's just go ahead. I'm keeping this car. Okay. So I did the transmission fluid. I changed out the gear oil and transmission, changed out the gear oil and differential, made sure there wasn't any leaks or anything like that. He admired my handiwork with the wiring harness and things. And then he says, you know what? I'm going home. Oh, you don't want to stay? No, I'm going to go home. If I go now, I'll beat the traffic and I'll make it. Let me tell you, that was nerve-wracking 4 hours. I was so worried. I had truck and trailer ready. I was so worried because that immobilizer light is still flashing. But the car runs great. There's nothing wrong with it. So like my son said when he came up here yesterday, he's like, so that immobilizer light don't mean anything. I said, I don't know. The kid at GM said, sir, the immobilizer light's still flashing. You should not be able to start that car. I don't know why it is. Hey, it's working. He drove it home. So Uncle drove it home in that 4 hours and called me when he got there, and he's like, well, it run fine. No engine lights, no nothing. Oh, I forgot to tell you. While we were out on that test drive, he come out of the car lot and goosed on it a little bit, and the engine light come on. So when we got home, I ran the code on it, and it was an O2 sensor, catalytic bank 2 sensor 1, catalytic system inefficiency. And I'm like, hold on. I know exactly what that was. That was that number 1 O2 sensor on this side, because that was the wire that got grounded to short. I bet it screwed up that O2 sensor. So I ran down and got an O2 sensor, and we put an O2 sensor on it. He drove it all the way home. Light never came back on. Everything's fine. I'm like, great. That's something. But he made the comment. He's like, well, you've had the car for 8 weeks. Holy shit, have I had it that damn long? I thought it was like 5. Oh my gosh, it was 8 weeks. I had that car 8 weeks to do that ECM swap. It didn't come here originally to do an ECM swap. It came here originally to figure out why it wouldn't start. And up until I took it to the dealership the last week that he was here, it still wouldn't start by the key. And there was just nothing I could find that would reason it wouldn't work. Computer. It's in those damn computers. But hey, it works. The car runs fine. Everything's great. I fixed his seat. The back part of his seat, the switch was out. I replaced that switch. His license plate light, they had taken the housings, had apparently broke off or whatever. They had one bulb hanging out, and the other wire for the other bulb was tied around it and stuck behind the license plate. And so I bought new license plate lights and fixed that for him. He was tickled about that, and did a good service on it. So I don't know. It made it. That was a big relief on my part. I was really worried that immobilizer light would be a problem. Now it might happen in the future. It might turn out to be a problem. But he drove it that 4 hours and said there was no issues. Of course, the light's just a flashing, but there was no issues. So anyway, I was out weed eating. I'm finally getting to my grass, and I thought about this, and I wanted to post up a video about the final results on the 2011 Chevy Camaro with the 3.6 liter. It was a job, but it was a learning experience for me, both with service manuals and with diagnostic scanners. So, all right. Hey, like Kenny Wessel says all the time, keep wrenching. And thanks for watching.